there's a better understanding about why when we go to the store and there's something that the kids want, the response is, well, that's not in the budget. A better understanding of why we're not just going to shell out money just, because we want a thing. There's a whole decision-making process that goes into that.
Welcome to Finance for Physicians, the show where we help physicians like you use money as a tool to live a great life. I'm your host, Daniel Wren, and I've spent the last decade advising physicians on their personal finances, with the mission to help them understand that taking control of their finances now means creating a future where they can practice medicine where, when, and how long they want to. Heather, how's it going?
It's going well. Happy Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday in
podcast land anyway.
It's Friday. Hopefully when you're listening to this, it's Friday for you too.
Yeah.
But if not, it will come soon.
Yes. Just a few more days.
A few more days. We got another fun topic to cover today. And so we're going to be I guess this may not be a topic for everybody. We're going to be talking about finances and how it ties into your kiddos. So maybe if you're listening and you have kids, for sure this is going to be, I think, something that would be of benefit to you, or maybe you're in the future thinking about having kiddos. I think this is the kind of thing. I have 3 kids, and man, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's completely true. I heard it so many times from people when they were younger, but they're like, they grow up fast, and they do grow up fast. It flies by, and all of a sudden I have like an almost teenager, which is insane to say. Can't believe it. He's got an attitude a little bit. Like he's really turning into a teenager. And then they were like little babies not long ago. So they grow up really fast. And so I think most parents, probably all parents, would say like they really want, one of the things they would like to teach their kids is to be responsible, and in particular, responsible with money.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to, that does not happen by chance, for sure. In fact, if you don't do anything about it, pretty much think they're going to end up being like the culture, that's just. And so if you look at the culture like, I don't want my kids to turn out like that, you got to be intentional about it and like put in some effort. Otherwise, you're probably at one point in the future going to have some regrets around it. So hopefully we can give you some ideas for how to start to think about this so that you don't have those regrets in the future about, wish I could have, in regards to your kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do grow up fast, right? Heather, I know you know
they
it.
do. Yep. I have 2 myself. One is 11. The other one is 10. And I hear you on a little bit of the attitude coming out already. But yeah, with regards to teaching kids about money, I feel like it's something that our clients bring up a lot. They have that intention. They want to do that. And it's also a question mark of how do we do that? This is not something by and large that is taught in school. A lot of people comment on that. I didn't have
Not at all.
I didn't have any personal finance classes when I was growing up, and I wish I had. But at the same time, there's a lot that's taught by parents, even if they don't say a word about it. There's always things that we are picking up on that we observed in our houses growing up.
Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. Yep. And that carries over into how we do things, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a little scary, but first, so I guess you don't have to be perfect, but like ideally, that's a little motivation to have your ducks in a row. Your kids are watching. But I think so. A lot of families I work with bring up the whole kids and finances thing by asking like, well, I want to start an investment for them, or like, I want to help them save on taxes, or how do I help them give them a head start on their investment account, those
Mhm.
kinds of things. And I would say, well, when those come up, I typically I'm like, well, hold on, let's like take a step back. Like
Uh-huh.
let's back up a little bit. I think for starters, it is good to think about the future and investing in that kind of thing. But I think a good starting point maybe is like, well, where do they have a plan for, do they know what, like, I guess cash flow is the word, the technical word for it. Like, what do they know how to manage their budget and their cash flow and where's their money going? And, or is it just like a gift? I see commonly parents aren't thinking about it like this, but they're like, I'm just going to give them the money, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the whole goal, I think my goal as a parent is I don't want to turn my kid into a spoiled brat. That's the other extreme. Like I want him to be financially responsible. That's the goal. And worst case scenario is they're a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
That's worst
Yeah.
case scenario. So I think
Yeah.
you have to you have to kind of be you got to really be thinking about like, well, if I'm just, you know, giving them money to build up their investment account without teaching them the fundamentals.
Sure. And with the fundamentals, I mean, even very, very basic things such as sales tax, right? Like if your child has never gone to the store to purchase things for themselves with their own money, just to understand the price that's marked on the shelf is not the same as what they're going to pay at the register. Basic things like that can really throw people for a loop once they
Yep.
get out of the house and on their own. Just basics and understanding about budgeting, how the world works, how credit cards work, how that's different from a debit card, how to write a check, things who uses checks anymore. I actually still do.
Yeah.
But that
Like
being
paper
said,
checks.
like paper checks. um, but my point is just the very, very basic understandings of how does our financial system work in the first place is
Mm,
really, really important to also teach them the value of how they want to spend their money, like how they're making decisions about their
mhm,
money and what they want to spend on. Um, in addition to everything that you said about, not wanting them to be spoiled brats and just expecting that it's going to come from mom and dad. And, that
mhm.
will continue on forever.
Yeah, the other thing is money is a store of value. So um, I think money, and also it's a trade-off for work. So money
Mhm.
has like a very direct relation to work. And so
Mhm.
I want to teach my kids good work ethic and to also understand the value of money,
Sure.
have an appreciation for it. And then as opposed to and feeling entitled. Like I don't want that. I want them to appreciate hard work and equating that to money. Because that's, I mean, when you're an adult, because we're trying to get our kids
Sure.
help them to turn into responsible adults. So as an
Sure.
adult, like you don't just get money;
Right.
it doesn't just appear. So like you have to work for it. And so at some
Yeah.
point from now until 18, when they're on their own, or whenever you
Yeah.
decide to have your kids be on their own, maybe never, but hopefully for me, like my kids, by the time they're 18 or so, they're on their own. It's from now until then, we have to get them to a point where they're realizing they need to work hard so that and then they're equating that to earning money. And then as they earn the money, they're able to be responsible with it so that they can, you know, manage it appropriately and not, not blow it um, because so what happens sometimes I think is none of that gets talked about. Unfortunately, I think this might be the norm is that none of it gets talked about. The kids, not even in school, they're not really learning much. And maybe they even see some bad habits from their parents because like you were saying, actions speak louder. Like the parents are going to show or model the kids. The kids are going to model the parents. And
Mhm.
so then they turn 18 and they're on their own and they absolutely know nothing.
Right, right. Well, and that was something for me growing up. My parents were not necessarily financially savvy, so to speak. But one thing they did is they gave me an allotted amount of money in a month when I was in high school and I was driving. And it was meant to be okay. If you need to pay for gas, it's coming from this allotted amount. If you need clothes, if you need tampons, it's coming from this amount. And that taught me how to budget before I even got out of the house. And I can say, going to college, I felt light years ahead of a lot of my peers who were calling home every weekend to their parents saying, I need money for pizza, because they had just never managed that kind of thing before. And I know with my kids, one of the things that we've talked about is opportunities for them to do some work before they're even out of the house. So my son, for example, is already planning on wanting to work at Publix as a bagger, when he's 14. And I can just foresee that when he's starting to get a paycheck, there will be that realization of, oh, I get paid this amount per hour. But before it hits my pocket, there are things being deducted, like taxes.
Right.
So that will absolutely spark conversations, but also I think provide a better understanding too about when mom's talking about her household budget and the things that I have to pay for. There's a better understanding about why when we go to the store and there's something that the kids want, the response is, well, that's not in the budget. A better understanding of why we're not just going to shell out money just because we want a thing. There's a whole decision making process that goes into that.
Let's take a quick break to talk about our firm, Renda Financial Planning. The goal of our podcast is to empower you to make better financial decisions. But sometimes the best financial decision you can make is to work with someone who understands your financial goals and has the expertise to keep you on track to reach them. That's where Ren Financial Planning comes in. We are a full-service financial planning firm that works with over 400 physicians and their families across the country. We charge a transparent monthly flat fee for our services and offer virtual meetings you can take from anywhere. Best of all, you'll get to work with a team that specializes in working with physician families. So whether you're starting out and wondering how you'll balance your student loan payments and saving for a home, or you are an established physician trying to figure out how to pay for your kids' college and how much you need to save to reach financial freedom, we can help. I'll put a link in the show notes to schedule a no obligation meeting with one of our certified financial planners. Ren Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. For more information about our firm, please visit renfinancial.com. That's WRENNE financial.com. I think that's just good experience. Experience is when they're young is so nice if you can give them experiences to fail, and even if they fail
Yes.
royally, that's like the best. So you can be like, when I was young, I was very, very motivated to earn money because partly because my parents were broke, so they were not going to
Yep.
buy anything anyway, even if they wanted
Yeah.
to. So I
Yeah.
was
It's
like,
not, so you got to figure it
I
out
gotta
yourself.
work so I can
Yeah.
get the things I want to get. So I
That's
was
right.
working very hard at a very young age and
Yep.
earning a pretty fair amount of money. And then, I saved it up and I bought my first car. But then
Yep.
I continued to save, and I started investing in stocks. And then I lost all of it. So
Yep.
that was one of my first lessons in investing, is
Mhm.
how not to invest.
Yes.
But I'm always trying to give my kids opportunities to work to make money. That's
Yeah.
another thing to think about, is like, we just did it last weekend. I was like, who wants to wash my car?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, $7 or something. I don't know. Um, and if you do a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love what you said about opportunities to fail. And I think that that is so important to provide that opportunity before they're out of the house when the stakes are low and there's still a safety net. I think that is a big part of building good financial habits. You
Mhm.
got to have the experience of buying, the $50 thing from Amazon that turns out to be a piece of crap, to better evaluate where you want to spend your money later on. And my
Right.
kids certainly had those experiences and plan differently, in the future for how they want to spend their allowance.
Yeah. So you make the $7 washing the car or whatever.
Hmm.
Then the next question is, what do you do with it? So
Yeah. Yeah.
spend it all on Fortnite skins or whatever they do, or do you buy something on Amazon that's junk, or do you save some of it, or do you give some of it away, or
That's right. Yep.
that's that's the next. So you work hard to earn money,
Hmm.
appreciating the value of it,
Yeah.
that it
And the
takes
time that
time,
you put in to get it.
the time, right?
Mhm.
Which increases your level of appreciation. And then you then have to decide. And I want me personally, I'm like, I'll give you some pointers, but like you get to decide, especially if
Mhm.
they earned it, where it goes. But then that gives them experience of making decisions with the money well, along the lines of where it goes,
Yeah.
um, even investing some of it or whatever. Like my oldest son has Nintendo stock.
Hmm.
We're trying to
Yeah.
teach him about investing. Um, but yeah, you can, and he's only 11, so he's
Mhm.
you can learn these experiences at a really young age, whereas a lot of kids are not.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that gets to one of the key points that I've talked a lot, about with my friends is I think sometimes we underestimate our kids' capacity to understand and learn things. Sometimes we feel like, oh, they're too young to really get into this topic, and we'll wait until later. But I would argue, with my kids, I have been giving them more of like a budgeting approach allowance since they were 4 and 5 years old.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's super early. That's good.
Super early, I know, but started them out and we do a give, save, spend method. So, we divvy up the amount that's given equally into give, save, and spend. But it's given them a lot of opportunity over time with an ever increasing amount of allowance to make decisions. For example, with give, if they have a classmate that's having a birthday party, I expect
Mhm.
them to use their give money and not mine to buy that present. And I can't tell you how many times we've had really awesome conversations where they are trying to find something that's going to fit, the personality of the person they're trying to buy for, but also understanding, yeah, you're not going to get them that $75 thing because they're 8 and you don't have that kind of money. So, what can we do? What can we buy that's going to fit your budget? And so, just a lot of those conversations about how much do you have, what decision making needs to happen, even looking at things on sale. Oh my goodness, that has become a big thing for the kids to try and find things on sale. And it's because of that awareness, because of that opportunity and that experience to start buying things.
Mm.
And also me delegating that responsibility to say, hey, you have the capacity to do this with your money. And I feel like they really also like being empowered in that way. And that can be very powerful.
So are you an allowance fan or no? You said
So
you did say you did like
So I call it an allowance, but the approach is really more of a budgeting. So I don't tie it to things like grades or doing their regular chores, because those are things that I expect them to do anyway. Just like nobody pays me to do the laundry. Um, but
Yeah.
that being said, absolutely, if there are opportunities for them to make money beyond that, I know my daughter is looking at getting certified as a babysitter. And like I said, my son was looking at when he's old enough, starting to work at the grocery store, for example. Those are key things that their minds already spinning on how can I earn more. But no, for the allowance in my house, the way that I really wanted to approach it is a lot of what we've been talking about, which is them being able to have the opportunity to make decisions
Mhm.
about what they have in a bucket of money. How I want to impress upon them the importance of you need to save for yourself first. You need to have an amount that's going to be something that you are giving, you are buying for others, you are tithing, that kind of thing. And then also the spending. So the freedom to say, you can use that on whatever you want. Totally your decision. Free reign there to blow it or save it up for something that you really want. Up to you. You can do whatever you want. And that has also been very helpful when we've been at the store and there's the mommy, I want this. Great. It's not in my budget, but you are absolutely capable of spending your allowance on it.
Yeah, that's and so they get to experience buying something. Maybe they make a dumb purchase or something, which is actually
Yeah.
good. And
Yes,
they're like,
yes.
"Oh, that was dumb because it
Yeah.
broke or whatever," and then they know.
Yeah, but again, so much better by my way of thinking for them to be able to have the freedom to make those stupid mistakes when they're still young. The stakes are really low, the amounts are much smaller than, they're out in college or beyond. And, now
Mhm.
we're talking about some really big, higher stakes things that we could make poor decision making on and lose a lot more money.
Yeah. So there's also a couple of books that I would recommend it
Mhm.
since we're talking about money with children.
Yeah.
That I've actually had the authors on the podcast a while. It's been a long time, but one of them is The Golden Quest: Your Journey
Mm.
to a Rich Life, and it's David Delisle. But if you Google The Golden Quest, I think it's like the only one, but
Mhm.
it's on Amazon. And then the other one is Grandpa's Fortune Fables. Um, and so I bought both of them for my kids, and they read them multiple times, shockingly.
So are these ones that you read with them initially
Oh,
or
they read them.
okay?
So, okay, so the Golden Quest is really good for like, let's see how old my son was when we did that. Maybe like a 7, 8 year old range, I guess. The
Mhm.
Golden Quest is more like a picture book, like it's not a ton of, it's much shorter and I'm trying to think of the book, those books that his age likes, like the Captain Underpants or something.
Oh yes.
But
I
it's
have
like a goofy kind of like, you know, exciting picture book and perfect for 6, 7, 8 year old
yeah.
type age range. But it teaches about money. It's got all kinds of money lessons in it.
Hmm.
Um, and then the Grandpa's Fortune Fables is not, it's a fable, obviously. But it's a lot more words. So I got that one for my 10-year-old at the
Hmm.
time. He
Hmm.
was 10 and he read it. I think he read it twice.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I read them myself too before I gave
Hmm.
them to him. And then I
Hmm.
interviewed the authors of them.
Yeah.
And they're very, very good lessons.
Yeah. So what are the key points or the key lessons of those books?
They basically teach what we're talking about in a, I think so they're teaching like fiscal responsibility, like the
Yeah.
benefits of hard work,
Yeah.
the difference between getting rich versus wealthy, and
Yeah.
how to basics of investing, and you know, don't blow all your money, and the importance of giving, and all the things we're throwing out.
Yeah.
But I think the part that makes I think the key for a book, for especially for kids, is it has to be written in like a story format that's somewhat enjoyable. And
Yeah.
that's what they did really well, is it was like story time with money lessons,
Yeah.
which my true test was like, is my kid going to have the patience to get through it? And they did. So
Right.
like, that's a
Right.
huge, huge win.
Yeah. Well, if you said multiple readings, then that's definitely a
Multiple.
win.
Grandpa's Fortune Fables, my oldest read it multiple times. Um, he's also a big, big reader, so I think I don't know if that might have been part of it, but he's usually reading like I don't know, like Harry Potter or something like that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, just giving your kids opportunities to learn, like they're like sponges. They want to learn it, and they just soak it right up. And you don't have to be a financial expert to teach them either. Like, we're
No,
financial
you
planners,
don't.
but like
Yeah.
that
Yeah, you
doesn't
really
qualify
don't have
us.
to be. Yeah. Yeah. So there are simple things like with the way that I do the kids allowance is we still do it with cash. And so they have envelopes, give, save, spend envelopes. And whenever we go to the store and they want to, spend their money on whatever, they will bring that spend envelope. And I can't tell you how much they love the positive reinforcement that they'll get from cashiers when they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're paying for this with your own, and talking about the change that they're going to get, how much they need to count out. So much positive reinforcement for that, which is great for them. And it
Mm.
reinforces for them and encourages them to keep on learning more and doing that. So that has been really, really fun to see.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We don't. I have the Bank of Dad, which, and then I just use my credit card, but it'd be
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having them use cash.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely has helped them in school as they're learning about change. All of the
Yeah,
math problems that involve change.
right.
They use it. Yep.
And the teacher's
Yep.
like, wait a minute, you already have learned this?
Yep. 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 So,
All right. Well, any other parting thoughts on helping our kids turn into
um,
responsible adults with money?
yeah, I think really it's just, understanding if our listeners are anything like me, I wish that my parents had taught me different things, more things, talked more about money when I was growing up so that I didn't have to learn some things the hard way. But that being said, that definitely influences the way that I am trying to parent my kid because I am hopeful that when they are an adult looking back at, what they were taught growing up, that it will be the lessons that I wished I had learned. And I'd say that maybe that's really where to start as you think about what you want to teach your kids about money is, when they're an adult, what would you hope they would say they learned from you? And then back into your strategies about how you're going to do that from there.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to look at it and a very good closing thought. I think everybody could benefit from at least going through the thought exercise of that. It's like, where would I like for my kids to end up?
Yeah.
And then what
Yeah.
can I do today to help them get
To
there?
get them there. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been good chatting about this, and we'll look forward to getting on again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniel.
No guests or clients appearing on the podcast received any form of compensation for their appearance and obtained no other benefit from us. It should not be assumed that every client has had the same experience. No guests or clients appearing on the podcast received any form of compensation for their appearance and obtained no other benefit from us. It should not be assumed that every client has had the same experience.